The cold bit through Trevor's thermal uniform as he walked down the frigid corridor. Blue light cast eerie shadows on the walls of Xenogenesis Corporation's underground research facility. His breath formed small clouds in front of his face, dissipating as quickly as they appeared. The life support engineer checked his tablet once more, confirming the unusual maintenance request that had dragged him away from his weekend plans. "Sector 12B," he muttered, glancing at the unmarked junction ahead. Not even on the facility map. Trevor had worked at Xenogenesis for 7 years, maintaining the complex life support systems that kept the corporation's biological samples preserved in various controlled environments. He prided himself on knowing every corner of the facility, until today. The message had been cryptic. Routine check required in Sector 12B. Priority Alpha, authorization, executive. No explanation. No details about what systems needed maintenance. Just a location he'd never heard of, and clearance codes he'd never seen before. The corridor narrowed as he proceeded deeper, the temperature dropping with each step. His security badge felt unusually heavy against his chest as he approached a sealed biometric door at the end of the hallway. The access panel was different from the standard models used throughout the facility, sleeker, with unfamiliar security protocols. Trevor hesitated. His security clearance shouldn't grant him access to high-security zones without specific authorization. Yet, when he held his badge to the scanner, the panel flashed green. "Identity confirmed. Trevor Mercer, Life Support Division," announced the automated system. "Access granted to Sector 12B." The massive door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a chamber unlike anything Trevor had seen in the facility. The room was circular, walls lined with monitoring equipment and medical apparatus he couldn't identify. In the center stood a transparent containment unit, not the standard preservation chambers used for biological samples, but something that resembled a prison cell made of reinforced glass. Inside was a woman. No, not a woman. The figure had a humanoid shape, but her skin was a vibrant crimson that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Silvery white hair cascaded down her back, contrasting sharply with her skin. She sat perfectly still, eyes closed, in what appeared to be meditation. Trevor froze, his training forgotten in the shock of the moment. This wasn't a biological sample. This was a sentient being. As if sensing his presence, the figure's eyes snapped open, brilliant gold irises fixing on him with unnerving intensity. She stood in a fluid motion and approached the glass, placing her palm against the barrier. Then, impossibly, he heard her voice in his mind. "Open the door, human! Free me!" The telepathic plea hit Trevor with such force that he staggered backward. The voice was feminine, desperate, and carried undercurrents of pain and longing that transcended language. "Please, they will return soon. I am the last of my kind. They keep me for my DNA." Trevor's training screamed at him to follow protocol, report the unauthorized communication, back away from the containment unit, alert security. But something in those golden eyes held him transfixed. "Who are you?" he whispered, approaching the glass. "I am Leia, the last Crimson Sentinel from Azura Prime. They destroyed my world to capture me." "Xenogenesis did this?" Trevor's voice was barely audible. "Yes, they experiment, extract, study, for 7 of your years. Please." Her mental voice broke with emotion. "I cannot bear another day." Trevor's mind raced. This violated every ethical standard in xenobiology. If what she said was true, Xenogenesis had imprisoned a sentient being, possibly participated in genocide, all for genetic research. The security panel beside the containment unit blinked, awaiting authorization. Trevor knew his badge wouldn't work here. This would require executive clearance. But his engineering override might bypass the system if he could access the maintenance protocols. Warning alarms blared in his mind. Helping her would mean betraying his company, risking his career, possibly his freedom. Yet standing before him was living proof of corporate atrocity. "They come. Decision now." Trevor heard distant footsteps echoing down the corridor. Without further hesitation, he pulled the maintenance panel open and connected his diagnostic tool to the security system. His fingers flew across the interface, bypassing failsafes and security protocols with engineering overrides meant for emergency system repairs. The containment field hummed as power fluctuated. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Then, with a soft hiss, the glass barrier rose. Leia stepped out, her movements graceful despite years of confinement. Up close, her crimson skin had a subtle luminescence, and intricate patterns were visible just beneath the surface, like circuitry made of light. "Thank you," she said aloud, her voice musical but raspy from disuse. "We must move quickly." The moment her words finished, alarm klaxons blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights replaced the blue glow, bathing the chamber in blood-colored illumination. "Security breach in Sector 12B," announced an automated voice. "All personnel initiate containment protocol. This is not a drill." Trevor grabbed Leia's hand. "This way," he said, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to reach the maintenance hangar. There are transport vehicles there." As they sprinted down the corridor, Trevor's mind whirled with the enormity of what he'd done. 7 years of loyalty to Xenogenesis, shattered in an instant. But one look at Leia's determined face confirmed he'd made the right choice. They reached the first junction when the security team rounded the corner ahead. 4 guards in tactical gear, weapons drawn. "Stop! Hands where we can see them!" shouted the lead guard. Leia tugged Trevor into a side passage. "Alternative route?" Her voice echoed in his mind. "Ventilation shaft," Trevor whispered, pointing to a maintenance hatch on the wall. "It connects to the emergency systems hub. From there, we can access the lower levels." The hatch opened to reveal a narrow tunnel, barely large enough for them to crawl through. Trevor entered first, Leia following close behind. The metal was ice-cold against his palms as they crawled through the labyrinthine network of shafts. Behind them, shouts and footsteps echoed as the security team discovered their escape route. Trevor increased his pace, mentally mapping the ventilation system based on his knowledge of the facility's layout. "Almost there," he gasped as they approached another hatch. "This should open into the environmental control room." The hatch swung open, and they dropped into a cramped room filled with monitoring equipment and control panels. Trevor immediately moved to the main console and began typing commands. "What are you doing?" Leia asked, her golden eyes darting nervously toward the sealed door. "Creating a distraction," Trevor replied, not looking up from the screen. "I'm triggering fire suppression systems in the eastern wing. It should draw security away while we make for the hangar." As he worked, Leia placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch sent warmth cascading through his body, counteracting the facility's bone-chilling cold. "Your body temperature is dangerously low." Her voice sounded in his mind. "My people generate excess heat. I can share it." Trevor nodded gratefully as he finished the sequence. On the monitors, he watched as sprinklers activated throughout the eastern laboratories, creating chaos as researchers scrambled to protect sensitive equipment. "That should buy us time," he said, rising from the console. "The hangar is 2 levels down. We'll need to use the service elevator. The main lifts will be locked down." Leia tilted her head, her expression curious. "How do you know the facility so well?" "Life support engineer," Trevor explained as they moved toward the door. "I've maintained systems in every sector. Well, almost every sector." He glanced at her. "How did you know about the facility layout?" A shadow crossed Leia's luminous features. 7 years of observation. When they moved me between laboratories, I memorized paths. When they thought I was sedated, I listened to their conversations. Knowledge was my only weapon. Trevor felt a surge of admiration for her resilience. That knowledge might save us both now. They slipped out of the control room and made their way through maintenance corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security would be heaviest. The service elevator was unguarded, everyone responding to either the containment breach or the fire alarm. As the elevator descended toward the hangar level, Trevor studied Leia more carefully. Despite her alien appearance, her expressions were remarkably human. Determination mixed with fear, hope tempered by caution. "Where will we go?" he asked quietly. "Xenogenesis has facilities worldwide. They won't stop hunting us." Leia's golden eyes met his. "There is a place called Nexus Station, a sanctuary moon hidden within a gas giant's rings. Others like me, refugees, experiments, outcasts, have found safety there." The elevator doors opened to reveal the vast expanse of the maintenance hangar. Various vehicles stood in orderly rows: ground transports, atmospheric shuttles, and a few short-range spacecraft used for orbital operations. Trevor pointed to a sleek craft near the far wall. "The Hermes. It's a supply runner, but it's equipped for deep space. Limited weapons, but excellent stealth capabilities." They had crossed half the distance to the ship when a strange sound, like liquid being poured onto a hot surface, echoed through the hangar. Trevor froze, recognizing the noise from classified reports he wasn't supposed to have seen. "Vexers," he whispered, horror creeping into his voice. "What?" Leia asked, tensing beside him. "Biological security. Xenogenesis's most classified project. Semi-sentient liquid forms designed to hunt genetic anomalies." Trevor pulled her behind a cargo container. "They track by DNA signature. They'll be drawn to you." As if confirming his words, 3 silver-gray masses slithered into view from different entrances to the hangar. Each was roughly the size of a large dog, their forms constantly shifting and rippling, with no discernible features except occasional protrusions that resembled sensory organs. "They cannot sense you." Leia's mental voice was taut with fear. "Not primarily. They're calibrated for non-human DNA, but they'll attack anything that interferes with their hunt." The Vexers moved with disturbing coordination, forming a perimeter that gradually closed in on their position. There was no way to reach the Hermes without crossing their path. Leia's expression hardened with resolve. "I can distract them. My telepathy affects most organic creatures, even synthetic ones if they have neural components." Before Trevor could protest, she stepped out from behind the container. The Vexers immediately oriented toward her, their forms elongating in preparation to strike. Leia raised her hands, her crimson skin pulsing with increased luminosity. The air seemed to vibrate around her as waves of telepathic energy radiated outward. The Vexers writhed, their fluid forms destabilizing under the psychic assault. "Now!" Leia shouted aloud. "I cannot hold them long!" Trevor sprinted for the Hermes, reaching the entry ramp and slapping the external access panel. The ship's systems hummed to life as the hatch opened. "Leia, come on!" he called. She backed toward the ship, maintaining her telepathic attack. 2 of the Vexers had collapsed into inert puddles, but the third was adapting, reshaping itself to resist her influence. It surged forward with explosive speed. Trevor lunged from the ramp, grabbing a plasma cutter from a nearby workbench. As the Vexer launched itself at Leia, he swung the activated tool in a wide arc. The superheated plasma sliced through the creature, spattering its semi-organic material across the floor. The severed portions immediately began flowing back together. Trevor seized Leia's arm and pulled her aboard the Hermes, slapping the hatch control as they stumbled inside. "Get to the cockpit!" he shouted, pointing toward the front of the craft. "Start the launch sequence, green button, then the sequence code 7734. While Leia rushed forward, Trevor sealed the inner hatches, establishing multiple barriers between them and the pursuing Vexer. Through the viewport, he saw security personnel flooding into the hangar, weapons drawn. He reached the cockpit just as Leia finished the startup sequence. The Hermes engines roared to life, vibrating through the hull. "Hangar doors are sealed," Trevor said, dropping into the pilot's seat and taking the controls. "We'll have to make our own exit." Can this vessel withstand weapons fire? Leia asked, strapping herself into the co-pilot's chair. Trevor grimaced. We're about to find out. He engaged the main thrusters at maximum power, aiming the Hermes directly at the massive hangar doors. Security forces scattered as the spacecraft accelerated across the floor. Impact warnings blared through the cockpit. "Brace!" Trevor shouted as they crashed into the doors. The reinforced hull of the Hermes tore through the metal like paper, catapulting them into the frigid night air outside the facility. Alarms screamed as the cabin pressure fluctuated. Trevor fought the controls, stabilizing their flight path as they climbed sharply into the dark sky. On the external cameras, he glimpsed the Vexor that had pursued them. It had attached itself to the outer hull and was spreading across the surface like a silver stain. "We've got a passenger," he said grimly, pointing to the monitor. Leia studied the image, her expression calculating. These creatures, what are their vulnerabilities? Extreme temperatures can destabilize them temporarily, Trevor replied, banking the ship steeply to clear a mountain range. Their cellular structure freezes or breaks down. A smile curved Leia's lips. Then let us introduce our friend to the vacuum of space. Trevor nodded, understanding her plan. He adjusted their trajectory, aiming for the upper atmosphere. The Hermes shuddered as it accelerated, breaking through clouds into the thinning air beyond. Warning indicators flashed as they approached the boundary between atmosphere and space. The temperature outside the hull plummeted rapidly. On the monitors, they watched as the Vexor's fluid form began to crystallize in the extreme cold, its movements becoming sluggish. "A bit more," Trevor murmured, pushing the engines harder. The final barrier broke as they escaped Earth's atmosphere, emerging into the star-studded darkness of space. The Vexor, now fully exposed to vacuum, froze completely before fragmenting into thousands of crystalline shards that drifted away from the hull. Trevor let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We made it." Leia's hand found his, her touch radiating comforting warmth. "The first step only. They will send pursuit craft. Then we'd better make the most of our head start." Trevor engaged the navigation system. "Where exactly is this Nexus station?" "Saturn's rings," Leia replied, "hidden within a cluster of ice fragments in the B ring. I can guide you there." Trevor plotted a course that would take them around the moon, using its mass to help slingshot them toward the outer planets. As Earth dwindled behind them, he finally had a moment to process the magnitude of what had happened. "I can't go back," he said quietly. "Ever." Leia's golden eyes studied him with compassion. "You sacrificed everything to help me. Why?" Trevor considered the question carefully. "Because it was right. What they were doing to you. It wasn't just unethical. It was evil. Many of your kind would not make such a distinction when the subject is not human." "Then they're wrong." Trevor's voice was firm. "Sentience deserves respect, no matter its origin." A small smile curved Leia's lips. "Your kind has potential, Trevor Mercer." For 3 days, they traveled through the void between worlds. The Hermes was well stocked with supplies, intended for long-haul deliveries to orbital stations, providing them with adequate food, water, and necessities for the journey. During this time, Trevor learned more about Leia and her people. The Crimson Sentinels had been peaceful explorers, their telepathic abilities evolving as adaptations to their home world's unique radiation. Xenogenesis had discovered their planet during an extrasolar survey and recognized the extraordinary potential of their genetic structure. "Our DNA can adapt to almost any environment," Leia explained as they shared a meal in the ship's small galley. "We can consciously control genetic expression to a degree your scientists would consider impossible." "So Xenogenesis wanted to weaponize that ability," Trevor surmised. Leia nodded, her expression solemn. "They attacked without warning. Our defenses were minimal. We were scholars, not warriors. I was among a research team studying stellar phenomena when they came. We were captured alive. The others, Her voice faltered. Trevor reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm sorry. For 7 years, they extracted genetic material, tested reagents, attempted to isolate the adaptive sequences. Her golden eyes met his. But our abilities are not merely biological. There is a consciousness component they could never replicate. Is that why they kept you alive instead of just preserving your DNA? Yes. They needed living tissue, actively adapting, and they needed my consciousness to observe how the adaptations functioned. She withdrew her hand gently. They did not expect me to reach into their minds, to learn their language, their science, their weaknesses. Trevor smiled. Their mistake. As they approached Saturn, the gas giant's magnificent rings came into view, billions of ice particles and rocky fragments orbiting the massive planet like a cosmic halo. Trevor maneuvered carefully, following Leia's directions to a particular region within the densest part of the B-ring. There, she said, pointing to what appeared to be merely another cluster of ice fragments. The station is camouflaged within that collection. Trevor approached cautiously, scanning for any signs of xenogenesis pursuit craft. The sensors remained clear. They had maintained their lead. As they drew closer to the ice cluster, a transmission crackled through the communication system. Unidentified vessel. You are approaching Nexus Station's sovereign territory. State your identity and purpose. Leia leaned toward the comm unit. This is Leia of Azura Prime, seeking sanctuary. I was imprisoned by Earth Corporation Xenogenesis. A human ally has helped me escape. A moment of silence followed, before the voice returned, noticeably warmer. Leia, we received intelligence you were captured, but no confirmation of your location. Stand by for docking instructions. The ice fragments ahead seemed to shift, revealing a concealed docking bay carved into what Trevor now realized was an actual moon. Natural on the outside, but extensively modified within. Guide lights activated, leading the Hermes into the hidden entrance. They docked in a cavernous bay where various spacecraft, many of designs Trevor had never seen, were arranged in orderly rows. As the Hermes powered down, a welcoming committee approached. 2 figures, one human and one distinctly not. The human was a tall, weathered man with a cybernetic left arm and eye implants visible as subtle glows beneath his skin. Beside him walked a 4-armed being with iridescent blue skin and compound eyes that reflected the bay's lights like faceted jewels. Leia's face lit with recognition. Harker, she said, gesturing to the man. And Pix, you survived. Trevor followed her down the ramp, suddenly conscious of his rumpled Xenogenesis uniform. Harker extended his cybernetic hand to Trevor. You've done something remarkable, friend. Not many would risk themselves for one of the off-world community. It wasn't a difficult choice, Trevor replied, shaking the offered hand. Not after I saw what they were doing. Pix spoke, his voice a melodious series of clicks and tones that somehow formed recognizable words. The Council wishes to meet with you both immediately. We have monitored Xenogenesis communications. They have dispatched recovery teams. Harker nodded grimly. We need to move quickly. Follow us. They were led through winding corridors carved from the moon's natural rock, occasionally intersecting with clearly artificial structures. The station was a fascinating blend of various architectural styles and technologies, some recognizably human, others completely alien. People of diverse species moved through the passageways, some humanoid, others with physiologies Trevor couldn't begin to classify. All regarded the newcomers with mixtures of curiosity and caution. Nexus Station was established 50 Earth years ago, Harker explained as they walked. Originally a mining operation in Saturn's rings, abandoned after the resources were depleted. A group of refugees from the Orion corporate wars claimed it, modified it, and established it as neutral territory. How many live here? Trevor asked, fascinated by the hidden society. Fluctuates between 3 and 5,000, Pix replied. Some permanent residents, others passing through, all united by one commonality, seeking escape from exploitation. They arrived at what appeared to be a council chamber, a circular room with a round table at its center. 6 individuals sat waiting, 3 humans and 3 beings of different species. At the head of the table sat a slender woman with close-cropped silver hair and sharp features. Eliza Kwan, Harker said by way of introduction. Director of Nexus Operations. Eliza rose, her gaze moving between Trevor and Leia. We've been monitoring xenogenesis activities for years. Their genetic experimentation programs have crossed ethical boundaries repeatedly, but we lacked concrete evidence for Federation intervention. Until now, Leia said. Indeed. Eliza gestured for them to sit. The liberation of a sentient being held against her will, the last survivor of a massacred species, changes everything. If we can document this atrocity, the Federation would be forced to act. Trevor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. You want us to testify? Xenogenesis won't allow that to happen. They'll send everything they have to silence us. One of the alien council members, a reptilian being with translucent skin through which Trevor could see multiple hearts beating, spoke in a rasping voice. Which is why we must act immediately. Secure the evidence, transmit it to Federation authorities, and place you both under protection. Eliza nodded. Xenogenesis maintains a data center in orbit around Proxima 3. All their research, including the Azura Prime mission logs, would be stored there. We need those files. You're suggesting we break into a corporate data center? Trevor asked incredulously. Not just any data center, Harker clarified. One of the most secure facilities in the solar system. Multiple defense systems, armed guards, and a direct line to Xenogenesis security forces. Leia's voice was calm but determined. Then we will need a team and a plan. Eliza smiled thinly. Already in progress. We've assembled a group with the necessary skills. The question is, are you both willing to take this risk? We could attempt to hide you, but Xenogenesis would never stop searching. Trevor and Leia exchanged glances. In her golden eyes, he saw the same resolve he felt. They destroyed my world, Leia said. Imprisoned me for 7 years. Treated me as a specimen, not a person. I will not hide in shadows while they continue such atrocities against others. Trevor nodded. I'm with you, whatever it takes. Over the next 2 days, they prepared for the mission. Trevor was introduced to the team Eliza had assembled. Dex, a former military specialist with extensive combat training and technical expertise. His body was enhanced with subtle, cybernetic augmentations that improve strength, reflexes, and sensory perception. Nara, a data analyst who had once worked for Federation intelligence before ethical disagreements, led to her retirement to Nexus. Her neural implants allowed direct interface with computer systems. Jax, a security expert with a cybernetic eye that could see in multiple spectrums. He had worked for Xenogenesis until discovering their more questionable projects and defecting. Krella, a member of an insectoid species with natural camouflage abilities. She specialized in infiltration and deception, able to mimic the movements and mannerisms of other species with uncanny accuracy. Together, they studied the layouts of the Proxima 3 facility based on information provided by Jax and other Nexus intelligence sources. The plan took shape. They would approach in a disguised transport ship, using falsified credentials to dock. Krella would assume the identity of a maintenance worker, while the others remained hidden. Once inside, Trevor and Nara would access the central database, while Leia used her telepathic abilities to cloud the perceptions of security personnel. The primary objective is the decryption key, Nara explained during their final briefing. Xenogenesis embeds their most sensitive data with quantum locks. We need the master key to decrypt the files we extract. Where would that be stored? Trevor asked. Jax pointed to a section of the facility map. Level 47, Server Room Alpha. Physical access required. They keep it isolated from networked systems. Leia studied the map intently. The security presence will be heaviest there. That's where your abilities will be crucial, Dex said. You'll need to mask our presence telepathically while we extract the key. Trevor noticed the concern in Leia's expression. What's wrong? She hesitated before responding. My telepathy. It is not merely communication. When I extend my consciousness into another mind, I can influence emotions, perceptions. In extreme cases, I can induce terror or confusion. Sounds perfect for this situation, Krella chittered. You don't understand, Leia said quietly. On my world, to invade another's mind without consent was our gravest ethical violation. To inflict emotional harm was unthinkable. Trevor understood her dilemma. We'll find another way. No. Leia's voice was firm. These are the people who destroyed my world, who imprisoned me, who would continue their atrocities unchecked. I will do what is necessary. The modified transport ship, disguised as a routine supply vessel, approached the Proxima 3 data center 12 hours later. Trevor, now dressed in nondescript clothing rather than his Xenogenesis uniform, watched through the viewport as the massive facility came into view. The data center was a technological marvel, a rotating wheel-shaped structure in geosynchronous orbit around Proxima 3, connected to the planet's surface by a space elevator. Multiple docking ports extended from the wheel's outer edge, accommodating the constant flow of ships delivering personnel and supplies. Dex, piloting the vessel, opened a communication channel. Supply ship Arcturus requesting docking clearance. Authorization code Tango 749, Echo. A brief pause followed before a response came through. Authorization confirmed. Arcturus. Proceed to Bay 12, Level 3. The ship smoothly docked at the designated bay. Krella, now physically resembling a human maintenance worker, thanks to her species' remarkable adaptability, disembarked first. The others waited, hidden in a concealed compartment beneath the cargo hold. Security scan complete. Krella's voice came through their comm devices 20 minutes later. Maintenance access secured. Proceeding to ventilation junction 7A. Trevor felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the ship's regulated temperature. Beside him, Leia remained eerily calm, her golden eyes closed in concentration. He wondered if she was already extending her telepathic awareness through the facility. Now, Dex whispered, opening the hidden compartment. They emerged into the cargo hold, now empty of the legitimate supplies that had been offloaded. Krella had left a maintenance hatch open, leading into the facility's service corridors. One by one, they slipped through the hatch. Trevor went first, followed by Leia, then Nara and Jax, with Dex bringing up the rear. The service corridor was narrow and dimly lit, designed for drones rather than human maintenance workers. Junction ahead, Jax whispered, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly as it analyzed their surroundings. 3 security personnel in the connecting corridor. Standard patrol pattern. Leia stepped forward, placing her hand against the wall. Her crimson skin pulsed with increased luminosity as she closed her eyes in concentration. They will see nothing. Her mental voice echoed in Trevor's mind. Move quickly, but calmly. They proceeded into the main corridor, passing directly by the security team. The guards' eyes slid over them without recognition, their expressions blank. Trevor fought the urge to hold his breath as they walked by, forcing himself to move naturally despite every instinct screaming to run or hide. Once past the patrol, they ducked into an access lift that Jax activated with a stolen security code. The lift began its ascent toward level 47. Impressive, Nara said to Leia. I've seen perception filters before, but nothing so complete. Leia's expression remained focused. It requires constant attention. The more minds I must influence, the more difficult it becomes. We'll move as quickly as possible, Dex assured her. According to the schematics, Server Room Alpha is approximately 200 meters from the lift exit. The lift doors open to reveal a sterile white corridor with numerous security checkpoints. Each doorway had multiple verification systems, biometric scanners, code panels, and armed guards. Leia's telepathic presence intensified, enveloping them like an invisible shroud. "I cannot mask us from the automated systems, only from human perception." Nara nodded, producing a small device from her pocket. "That's my department." She attached the device to the first security panel they encountered, bypassing the biometric requirements with a series of pre-programmed algorithms. They proceeded through 3 security checkpoints this way, Leia maintaining her telepathic shield, while Nara handled the technological barriers. Trevor remained close to Leia, noting the increasing strain evident in her posture. Maintaining the telepathic concealment was clearly taking a toll. "Almost there," Jax murmured, as they approached the final checkpoint. A massive reinforced door, with the Xenogenesis logo emblazoned across it. "Server Room Alpha. Maximum security." Nara studied the control panel with concern. "This is more complex than the others. Triple redundant systems, quantum encryption." Dex glanced at his wrist display. "We have approximately 7 minutes before the next security sweep. Can you crack it?" "Not conventionally," Nara admitted. "But," she turned to Trevor, "you were Xenogenesis life support. Your engineering credentials might have backdoor access through the environmental controls." Trevor stepped forward, examining the panel. "Life support systems are integrated with all secure areas for safety reasons. If I can trigger an environmental diagnostic..." He connected his stolen access tool to a secondary port on the panel, initiating a series of commands that would fool the system into running a life support check, which required momentarily disabling security protocols. The panel flashed red, then yellow, then green as the door slid open. "We're in," Trevor whispered. Server Room Alpha was a vast chamber, filled with row upon row of quantum processing units. The air hummed with the sound of cooling systems, keeping the powerful computers at optimal temperature. In the center of the room stood an isolated terminal, disconnected from the network, requiring physical access. "That's our target," Nara said, moving toward the central terminal. "The decryption key will be stored there." As they approached, Leia suddenly stiffened. "Someone comes. A mind I cannot easily influence." Jax checked a monitoring device. "Not on any scheduled patrol. This is someone with high-level clearance." Dex drew a compact weapon from his belt. "How long do you need, Nara?" 3 minutes to extract the key, maybe 4 to verify it's complete." "Do it," Dex ordered, taking a position near the door. "Trevor, help her. Leia, Jax, with me. We'll handle whoever's coming." Trevor joined Nara at the terminal, while the others prepared for a confrontation. His engineering skills complemented her data expertise as they worked to access the secure files. "Found it," Nara said after 2 tense minutes. "Initiating extraction protocol." The terminal display showed a progress bar as the quantum key began transferring to Nara's specialized storage device. The bar moved agonizingly slowly. 67%, 68%, 69%. The server room door slid open. A tall, imposing figure entered. A man in an immaculate black suit with the Xenogenesis executive insignia. His face was angular, emotionless, with eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw with cold calculation. "Director Vex," Jax whispered, recognition and fear in his voice. Vex surveyed the room, his gaze fixing on their group with predatory focus. Behind him, 6 security personnel in advanced tactical gear filed in, weapons raised. "Fascinating," Vex said, his voice as emotionless as his expression. "Our specimen has returned, and brought friends. How convenient." Leia stepped forward, her crimson skin pulsing with intense light. "You will let us leave with the data. The truth of what Xenogenesis has done will be revealed." Vex smiled thinly. I think not. You are corporate property, L7. Your genetic material is worth more than this entire facility. As for your accomplices, his gaze swept over the others. Traitors and thieves. Their fate is already determined. Dex raised his weapon, but Vex made a subtle gesture. The security team's weapons hummed as they powered up, targeting systems locking on. Please, Vex said almost pleasantly, give us a reason. Trevor glanced at the terminal. 89%, 90%. Not fast enough. Leia moved with sudden purpose, stepping directly toward Vex. Her golden eyes blazed with intensity. You took everything from me, she said, her voice unnaturally calm. My world, my people, my freedom. Vex's expression remained unmoved. And in return, your genetic adaptability will revolutionize human evolution. A fair exchange. No, Leia replied softly. Not fair, not forgotten. She raised her hands, and the air between her and Vex seemed to distort. Trevor felt a wave of psychic energy radiating outward, not the gentle shield she had maintained before, but something raw and powerful. Vex's composure cracked. His eyes widened, pupils dilating in sudden terror. The security team behind him began to falter, weapons wavering as expressions of primal fear overtook their disciplined facades. What are you doing? Vex gasped, staggering backward. Leia advanced slowly, showing you what it feels like. The fear, the helplessness, the knowledge that everything you are is being stripped away, piece by piece. Trevor had never seen such power from her. The security team was collapsing now, some dropping their weapons to clutch their heads, others backing away in blind panic. Vex himself had fallen to his knees, his face contorted in a silent scream. Leia, Trevor called, concerned by the intensity of her assault. The key is complete. We need to go. For a moment, he feared she hadn't heard him, that she was lost in the justified vengeance against her captors. Then, slowly, she lowered her hands. The psychic pressure receded, though Vex and his team remained incapacitated, trapped in whatever nightmares she had unleashed in their minds. I could have destroyed them, she said quietly, as she rejoined the group. Part of me wanted to. Trevor took her hand. But you didn't. That's what matters. Nara disconnected the storage device, confirming the key had been successfully extracted. We have what we came for. Then let's move, Dex ordered. Before reinforcements arrive. They retraced their steps through the facility, Leia maintaining a more aggressive telepathic shield that caused security personnel to actively avoid their path, rather than simply not notice them. The strain was evident in her posture, but her determination never wavered. When they reached the docking bay, Krella was waiting with a transport ship primed for immediate departure. Situation? Dex asked as they boarded. Facility is on heightened alert, Krella reported. No specific cause identified yet, but they're deploying additional security to all levels. Get us out of here, Nara said, already connecting the storage device to a secure transmission unit. I need to begin encryption and transmission of the evidence to Federation authorities. The transport detached from the docking port, engines firing at maximum thrust to put distance between them and the facility. Trevor joined Dex in the cockpit, helping to plot an evasive course back toward Federation space. 3 vessels detaching from the facility, Dex announced grimly. Pursuit craft, heavily armed. Trevor studied the tactical display. We're faster, but they have superior weapons range. If we can reach the Federation border before they close the gap. Pushing engines to emergency capacity, Dex confirmed, hands flying over the controls. In the main cabin, Nara worked frantically to prepare the evidence for transmission. Quantum key is functioning. Decryption in progress. Files on the Azura Prime operation. Genetic experimentation protocols. Everything. Leia sat beside her, her expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. After 7 years, the truth will finally be known. The ship shuddered as a warning shot passed close to their port side. The pursuing vessels were gaining. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Dex called from the cockpit. Federation border in 2 minutes. Trevor joined Leia, noting her exhaustion after the telepathic exertions. Is there anything you can do? Can your abilities reach that far? She shook her head. Not to influence minds at that distance, but her golden eyes met his. There is something else we might try. Another shot rocked the ship, this one grazing the outer hull. Warning indicators flashed across the control panels. Whatever it is, do it fast, Dex shouted. We're taking damage. Leia reached for Trevor's hands. My people could join minds in moments of crisis. It amplifies our abilities, allows us to channel energy in ways impossible alone. I'm not telepathic, Trevor reminded her. You don't need to be. You just need to open your mind to mine. Her crimson fingers intertwined with his. Trust me. Trevor hesitated only briefly before nodding. I trust you. Leia closed her eyes, and Trevor felt a warm presence touch his consciousness, gentle but insistent, like waves lapping at the shore of his mind. He instinctively resisted at first, then consciously relaxed, allowing her in. What followed was unlike anything he had experienced. His awareness expanded, merging with Leia's in a symphony of thought and emotion. He felt her exhaustion, her determination, her hope, and beneath it all, a wellspring of power he hadn't imagined possible. Through their joined consciousness, Leia reached out to the ship itself, not to the pursuing vessels or their crews, but to the very systems of their own craft. Trevor understood her intent immediately and aligned his engineering knowledge with her power. Energy surged through the ship's propulsion systems, bypassing safety protocols and regulatory algorithms. The engines responded with newfound power, pushing beyond their designed limitations. What's happening? Dex exclaimed, as the ship suddenly accelerated, the force pressing them all back into their seats. The engines are exceeding maximum output by 30%. The pursuing vessels fell behind as the transport shot forward with impossible speed. On the navigation display, the Federation border approached rapidly. Transmission ready, Nara announced. Sending data packet to Federation Justice Center on encoded channel. The moment they crossed the border, the pursuit craft broke off their chase. Xenogenesis would not risk a direct confrontation in Federation space, not with the evidence already transmitting to authorities. Trevor felt Leia gently withdraw from his mind, the connection fading like a dream upon waking. He opened his eyes to find her smiling weakly at him. We did it, she whispered. Yes, he agreed, supporting her as exhaustion finally overtook her. We did. 6 months later. Trevor stood beside Leia on a balcony overlooking the Federation Justice Center's Grand Plaza. Below, crowds had gathered to witness the historic verdict in the case against Xenogenesis Corporation. The trial had captivated public attention across the solar system, the testimony of an alien genocide survivor and the corporate whistleblower who freed her becoming a powerful symbol of resistance against corporate exploitation. Leia had been granted Federation citizenship status in recognition of her status as the last known survivor of the Crimson Sentinels. Trevor had been appointed to a Federation engineering corps, tasked with developing ethical life support systems for diverse species. The verdict will be announced soon, Trevor said, watching news drones hovering over the plaza. Leia nodded, her golden eyes reflecting the setting sun. She looked different now, stronger, more confident. The past 6 months had been a journey of healing for her, reclaiming her identity beyond that of victim or specimen. Whatever the outcome, she said, we have already won. The truth is known. My people are remembered. Trevor smiled. And not just remembered. The genetic samples recovered from Xenogenesis headquarters. They're intact, viable. The Federation Xenobiology Division believes they might be able to restore your species. With your help. Hope bloomed in Leia's expression. Truly, I had not dared to dream. Their conversation was interrupted by a chime from their communication devices. The verdict was being announced. They watched on a hovering display as the Federation Judicial Council delivered their decision. Xenogenesis Corporation was to be dissolved, its assets seized, its leadership prosecuted for crimes against sentient beings. The evidence Trevor and Leia had risked everything to obtain had proved irrefutable. As the announcement concluded, cheers erupted from the plaza below. Justice, long delayed, had finally been served. Trevor turned to Leia, finding her eyes already on him. In the 6 months since their escape, their bond had deepened beyond rescuer and rescued. They had found in each other something neither had expected, a connection that transcended their different origins. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Leia's crimson hand found his, fingers intertwining as they had during their mental joining aboard the escape ship. "Now we build the future, together." The setting sun bathed them in golden light as they looked out over the city, not as fugitives or victims, but as architects of a new beginning, for Leia's people, for a more just society, for themselves. And as darkness fell, stars emerged above, the same stars that had witnessed the destruction of Azura Prime, the same stars that now watched its legacy reborn. In their ancient light, Trevor and Leia found promise that even from the greatest loss, new life could emerge, that against the vast indifference of the universe, compassion and courage still mattered. They would face many challenges ahead: the resurrection of a species, the reform of corporate ethics in space exploration, their own relationship, bridging biological and cultural differences. But in this moment, watching the first evening star appear above the horizon, those challenges seemed like opportunities rather than obstacles. "Together," Trevor agreed, sealing their commitment with a gentle squeeze of her hand. "We build the future together."